Okay, well, what do you say we get started?
Sounds good.
Okay, terrific. So welcome everybody. My name is Jonathan. I'm the Director of Operations here at Centercourt 360. And I am very delighted to welcome you to our latest Zoom speaker series. And we have a terrific event lined up tonight with, I'm going to give you the official title, College Admissions During COVID, and presented by Rachel Dortch. Rachel is a friend of the 360 program. She is bringing her experience as a student athlete and an admissions officer at D1 Seton Hall University to Centercourt for an exclusive talk about college admissions. She's going to take questions on topics like NCAA eligibility, recruiting tips, financial aid packages, financial aid timelines, and how all of these are affected by COVID. So I'm sure we still have a few more people joining us, but I'm just going to remind everybody that this will be on our YouTube channel. So if you didn't catch all of it, or if you just want to review, it should be up on our YouTube channel by the end of the week. And with that, I will hand it over to you, Rachel. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, John. So, hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us this evening. As mentioned, my name is Rachel Dortch. So, to give you a little background about myself, I currently live in New Jersey. I was a collegiate student athlete, so I played basketball at Pace University, that's located in Westchester, New York. From there, I went to go get my master's at Hofstra. While getting my master's, I was a coach for the women's basketball team at Hofstra. And then I bounced around a little bit and I ended up at St. Peter's University, where I was the coordinator for student athlete development and leadership. So collegiate athletics, working with student athletes is definitely a passion of mine. And currently, right now, I'm an assistant director of admissions at Seton Hall University. So that's just a little bit about me and my background. Just to give you an idea of what's going to happen tonight, I'm going to share my screen. I'll go through a quick presentation just to give you an overview of things that you should know as you're a student athlete going through the recruiting process, and also admissions facts with a little asterisk of COVID, right? Because things are looking a little different this year. If you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat. I would love to do a Q&A at the end of the presentation. So let me go ahead, share my screen really quickly with you guys. And let's just jump right into that. Okay, so college admissions during COVID-19. This picture definitely has defined how I have been feeling since March, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this, and it's a crazy time, right? So what I really want to begin this presentation by saying that when you're talking about college athletics, there's three different divisions: Division I, Division II, and Division III athletics. Now, typically with Division I, you'll see at those bigger institutions, maybe like at Rutgers, Pitt, Baylor. Division II is like Pace University, Nyack College in New York. There's a lot of other Division II schools. And then Division III is a little bit smaller, where you might see like Rowan University in New Jersey. Now, the difference is that, of course, more student athletes participate among the divisions. So as you notice, at a Division I school, maybe 1 in 23 students would be student athletes, whereas in a Division III school, 1 in 6 students would be student athletes. I put this slide up because there is always a myth that with student athletes in high school, they have to go Division I or it's nothing. And I really want to, it's kind of, I guess, my goal to debunk that myth. Please do not get caught up in the divisions of the schools when you're talking about collegiate athletics. Each school is unique, each division is unique, and there's no difference in education. There's some Division III schools academically that are way better than some Division I schools. And I really just want to put that in your head as you are going through the recruiting process. Don't get caught up on what division the school is in. Really be open to all of the opportunities that are awarded to you. Now, When we're talking about admissions this year, because of COVID, a lot of students were not able to take their SAT or the ACT scores. As a ripple effect of that, a lot of institutions, I believe maybe 95% of the institutions in the country have decided to go test optional. So what does that mean? Test optional means that if you feel like your SAT and ACT scores are not a good reflection of you academically, or if you feel like, or you just haven't had the opportunity to take your SAT or ACT, you can still apply to that school and still be considered for admission. Now, whether to submit your test scores or not is a different question. So the first thing you want to do when dealing with a test optional school is conduct research. You really want to do research and take responsibility for your own education. So what do I mean by that? Figure out their test optional policies, right? Some schools might say only certain majors are test optional. I know one school that says if you're an in-state student, you're test optional. However, if you're an out-of-state student, you have to submit test scores. So you really want to do research on your test optional policies. The next thing you want to do is do research on the institutional averages. What's the average? If you do have a test score on file, figure out the average of the school and see, is it worth submitting your test scores or not? And again, when is it beneficial for you to take your test? So that goes into doing research on the averages to see if you are a good candidate for admission at that specific institution. So let's take Seton Hall, for example. So at Seton Hall, our policy is that we are test optional for all of our academic programs except our joint MD program. Our averages are average GPA of a 3.6, an average SAT of a 1235, and an average ACT score of 27. So I usually tell students that I'm working with, if you have a 1210 or above, it's beneficial for you to submit your test scores with your application, because that might help you in the long run when we get into merit-based scholarship. Now, I will give you a little tip to figure out your GPA. If you are on a 100-point scale, all you have to do is enter your GPA divided by 25, and that will give you your GPA on a 4-point scale. So if you have the 85 average, you divide it by 25, that will give you at a 3.4. So that's a little bit about test optional institutions and how they're run. Now, let's talk about eligibility. So there's something called the NCAA Eligibility Clearinghouse Center, and that is designed for your students who might be looking to go Division I or Division II. Division III student athletes do not need to sign up and make an account with the clearinghouse. So this is really for Division I or Division II athletes, or if you just don't know. And what the clearinghouse does is it looks at all of your academic information, and it really certifies your academics as well as your amateurism. And amateurism is just making sure you never got paid to play your sport before. So it was originally designed to stop the falsifying of academic records. So some history for you. The clearinghouse, or the Eligibility Center, it was started back in, I think, 1994. And what happened was, a couple years before, there was a scandal, and there was a couple of football players who graduated college with like a 6th grade reading level. And something needed to be put in place to make sure that student athletes are coming to college prepared. So that's how the clearinghouse started. So what you are looking at is really what the NCAA is looking for when we are looking at your transcripts in the clearinghouse. So they really want to make sure you are taking these core courses. So for example, if you are looking to go Division I, they're going to look to see, did you do 4 years of English, 3 years of math, 2 years of a science, 1 additional year of one of those subjects, 2 years of social sciences, and 4 years of additional courses. I usually most students really don't have to worry about making sure they have enough core courses or not, just because it's typically built in to a lot of public school systems as well as Catholic school systems. I've been working with certifying student athletes for maybe 2 years now, and I've only seen one case where a student's core courses weren't aligned, and we just had to go through a few extra hoops to get that student certified. But outside of that, most curriculums are already set up that way. So it's not really something you need to worry about, but this is what the NCAA is looking for on your transcripts. Now, when we're talking about eligibility and COVID, now, in previous years, the NCAA, they would focus on your GPA as well as your test scores to make sure that it fit on a sliding scale. So for example, if you had, I don't know, a 3.0 GPA, then you needed a certain amount of, you needed a certain score on your SAT or your ACT in order for you to be eligible to play. Being that it's very hard for students to submit their SAT and their ACT now because of COVID and testing sites being closed, the NCAA is doing a waiver. So it's the same requirements as any other year. However, no test scores are needed. Now, I really want to make sure I'm clear with this. This is for the NCAA. It depends on the type of school and the institution that you're working with to see if they need test scores or not. However, if we're just talking about being certified and eligible within the NCAA, all you need to do is really focus on your GPA. So if you are a Division I school, if you're participating in a Division I school, you need to have at least a 2.3, and you need proof of graduation. And then if you're for a Division II school, you need at least a 2.2 with proof of graduation. And those are things that are going to determine that you're eligible. And when we say eligible, that means you're able to go to the school and participate in your sport right away. You don't need to have a red shirt or sit out a year or any of that type of stuff. Now, when we're talking about recruiting tips, it's very interesting this year because college coaches, they're not able to go out and recruit. They're not able to go see you play or anything of that sort. So I like to tell students is do your research. Again, be responsible for your education and your future. Stay organized. So I created this organizer. I remember, I guess it was maybe 10 years ago from now, I was going through the same process as you. And what my coach did is he handed me this organizer. He said, Rachel, put down all the schools that you want to play for. Where do you want to go? Figure out what division they are. Figure out the head coach's name, the assistant coach's name. Figure out how many seniors are currently at your position, right? Because they're going to be looking people to fulfill that position. So how much of an opportunity do I have to come to this institution? How many seniors are going to be starting when I'm a freshman? That might affect playing time. And then, of course, outside of athletics, you want to make sure you know your research about the school because you're not just athletes, you're student athletes. So this is when you need to figure out, okay, why should I come to this school academically? What is the school known for? How many scholarships are you eligible for? Do certain schools offer merit scholarship? Do certain schools only offer athletic aid? These are all questions that you want to ask yourself. So I created this organizer. If anyone wants a copy of it, please, I'll put my email in the chat and I would be happy to send you one. But this really just helped me keep organized about what I wanted to do. Some other tips about recruiting is be active, right? So what I did is once I had my list of schools and I was realistic about the schools, I'll be honest with you guys, I'm not good enough to play at UConn for basketball. So UConn wasn't on my list, right? And that's not saying I don't have self-confidence. I was just honest with myself. So after I had these schools' names, what I did was I created a nice email. It was almost a cover letter introducing myself, saying, this is who I am. This is what my grades are. This is what I do. Here's some game film on me. Here's some stats. Here's my schedule. So it might be hard to send that schedule part to coaches, but you are more than welcome to send information about yourself, as well as any type of game film that you might have. Coaches, I hear now, they're even looking at student athletes going through practice drills, just because it's very hard to get out to meet everyone in person. So coaches are looking at whatever film that you send them. So I always say, really be active in the recruiting process. Sometimes I understand it is stressful and overwhelming, but just take a deep breath and enjoy the moment of schools wanting you and you reaching out to schools. Okay, so I'm flipping a little bit back and forth between athletics and admissions. So demonstrated interest, this is when we're talking about admissions, right? So demonstrated interest is a factor that's taken into consideration when schools are making their application process, specifically at Seton Hall, and I know a lot of schools are doing it as well. We as admissions counselors and admissions offices, we want to know, how bad do you want to come to the school, or how much research have you done on the institution? So when you see that there's a lot of virtual events going on and there's all these registration links and all that stuff, that's us as an institution keeping tally. Who's interested in the school? Who actually shows up? Who participates in these events? So I highly suggest any school that you're even slightly interested in, go visit a virtual open house or a virtual tour. Another quick way is to meet with admissions counselors. You really want to make admissions counselors your friend, especially during this time, because they're going to be the ones to say, I think you should submit your application test optional, or they're going to be the ones to better advise you, saying, yes, submit your application with your test scores. It's going to help you out in the long run. So reach out, be proactive, reach out to your admissions counselor, send them an email and just say, hey, do you mind if we can have a quick 10-minute meeting? Trust me, I'm an admissions counselor. I know a lot of admissions counselors. We love doing student meetings, right? It's a great way for us to get to know you a little bit better. So when we do come across your application, we can say, oh, I remember talking to John and it was great. Let me make sure I pay close attention to his application. So again, really be proactive. Now let's talk a little bit about financial aid. So with the FAFSA, there is a deadline. I believe it is in October. Now, this is not the final last deadline that you need in order to submit your FAFSA. It's on the rolling basis. It's more of a soft deadline. And we say that soft deadline is we want families to get their FAFSA in as soon as possible so that they can get their award package, what type of money they want in scholarship from the government, so that they can get their award package earlier. So typically, if you submit your FAFSA around this time now, you're going to be among that first wave of students who get the first batch of their award packages, which typically happens the second week of February. And what's needed is your parents or your guardians' previous year's tax information. That's what is needed for the FAFSA. Some families, they don't feel comfortable filing a FAFSA. I always try and encourage everyone to do so, just because it gives you the option of whether you want to take out loans, maybe you might be eligible for some type of scholarship, but at least it gives you the option. So the FAFSA is non-binding. It just gives you more options when it does come time to answer the question, how are we going to pay for this? So this is an example of a financial aid award letter. Most award letters are going to come to you in this way, especially if you're working with a New Jersey school, but this is just a general overview. So to go through it, so over here is your expected family contribution. That's called your EFC number. The way that works is the government looks at all the data that you included in your FAFSA, and they come up with some magical number saying, this is how much this family can contribute to their child's education. Sometimes the number is 0, sometimes it's in the 100,000s, sometimes it's in the 50,000 range. It really, really varies, right? But what I will say, is that with the FAFSA, the lower your EFC number is, the more money that you're eligible to win in scholarship, right? Whether it's scholarship from the government, etc. So let's just go through this. So at the top here is going to be your total cost of attendance. And this is going to be a breakdown essentially of your bill. So on the left-hand side is your direct cost, how much money you are going to spend directly the direct cost is going to be how much money is going to be on your bill reflected. So for this is tuition, fees, food and housing, because the student decided to live on campus, and the total cost is about $61K. On this side is your indirect expenses. So this is kind of expenses that the university estimated for families. This is how much you'll pay in book supplies. This is how much you'll pay on transportation. None of these expenses show up on your bill, but it gives families a good idea of how much are you going to be spending for the year. And that comes up in your total cost of attendance. So your total cost of attendance is your direct costs and your indirect costs put together. Now, what you're looking at here is grants and scholarship. This section is money that you do not need to pay back. So when we're looking at this particular student, this student received a scholarship of $20,000, about $21,000, $20K, right? And they also got an additional scholarship from Seton Hall of $6K. Now, usually some institutions will do need-based grants. That is determined, again, on this EFC number. Sometimes the FAFSA, the government, they might put maybe like $3,000. The most I've seen is maybe an extra $6,000, and that would show up here. But in this box, grants and scholarship, that's how much money the student needs to pay. And then here is the direct net cost and the total net cost, kind of what you see up here. However, it deducts the amount in scholarship. So if the student was to come to Seton Hall and they only wanted to know how much am I going to pay exactly on my bill, it's about $34K. If they want to include these indirect expenses, then you're looking at about $38K. So that's a little bit of a breakdown. Then, come on, okay. You move down the page and they're going to say, okay, this is how you can pay for it. Here are some options for you. Mind you, the FAFSA is all options. It's nothing that you have to take on your own. It's just offering an option to you. So for some students, depending again on that EFC, might be eligible for federal work study, which means that they can apply for a job on campus, and this is how much money they would get per year in a stipend. Now, this goes on to say that not every student that works on a campus is a federal work study student. I know at a lot of institutions, they do offer jobs to students who might not be federal work study students. So it really just depends on where you're at. Now, this is the tricky part. So now you have loans. You have direct subsidized loans and unsubsidized loans. A subsidized loan is when both the principal and the interest are deferred until the repayment period. The repayment period is 6 months after your student receives their degree. Now, for when you're thinking about the future, there will always be an increase each year in your direct subsidized loan. So for your freshman year, you'll get $3,500. For your sophomore year, you'll get $4,500. For your junior and senior year, you'll get $5,500. And again, you'll have the option to take all of the money, some of the money, none of the money. It's completely up to you. The student also has the option of taking out an unsubsidized loan. Now, the way the unsubsidized loan works is that the principal is deferred, but the interest is going to keep increasing while the student is in school. The student is able to, if they would like, to pay the interest while they're in school, or they can wait until the repayment period, which is 6 months after the graduation date. Now, the interest with these loans are generally lower than a private loan, and they're appealing to students because there's no credit evaluation, and that's kind of why students might take these loans. Now, down here, this $30,000, right? This is a Parent Plus loan. Now, these loans would be in the student's name, but this loan would be in the parent or the guardian's name. And the way that works is that the parents can take up, or the guardian can take out up to $30,000 in loans to pay for their child's education with this specific student. Now, with the Parent Plus loan, that is going by credit evaluations. So for whatever reason, if a parent is denied a Parent Plus loan, that means the student is eligible for additional $4,000 in unsubsidized loans. Okay, so only if the parent is denied, then the student is eligible for more money in unsubsidized loans. There's a really great website. I'll put the link in the chat. It's called Elm Select. And that is, if you want to go the private loan route, you put in Elm Select, you select the university that you're interested in. So let's say for Seton Hall, and all these loan providers will come up. These are the best loan providers that we suggest for the school. Here are their interest rates, etc. So that's also a good resource to look at when you're shopping for loans. So that is the end of the presentation. I would really love to hear from you guys. What type of questions do you have? Comments, concerns, anything? Good question. So I do have one question. Should the FAFSA be filled out as a junior, or should you wait until your senior year? I think a good timeline for you to fill out your FAFSA is when you are the fall of your senior year, because you're looking at your parents' or your guardian's previous tax information. So that was a good question. Any other questions? Oh, I was that thorough, huh? Okay, well, what I'll do is.
That was just me.
Ooh. So what I'll do is, in the chat, I put down the Elm Select resource for everyone to check out. It's a really good resource to check out when you're shopping around for student loans. It's very easy to use. It has a school search button, so you can look among different schools. So, good question about academic scholarships. So they're called merit-based scholarships, and it looks different at a lot of institutions, but the general overview is the higher your GPA is, some institutions, the higher your test scores is, the more money you can receive in scholarship. So for example, let's take, I work at Seton Hall, right? So let's use them as an example. Our merit-based scholarship is called the University Scholarship. The way that works is, of course, the higher your GPA is, the more money you receive in scholarship. If you have a 4.0 GPA, you're eligible to receive at least up to $22K in scholarship. Now at Seton Hall, our merit-based scholarship is automatic. So there's nothing extra a student has to do when applying. We look at your GPA and we automatically award that to you, so you don't have to worry about it. And depending on the school that you're interested in, that's why I always say go back and really make friends with your admissions counselor. That's something that's really important, because you can ask your admissions counselor, I'm interested in merit-based scholarships, or I'm interested in any other type of scholarships. What can you help me with? And generally, because it's our job to, we're going to help you. So really make friends with your admissions counselor with whatever institution that you're interested in. You're welcome. Anything else? So someone asked a question. So the NCAA profile and the NCAA Eligibility Center, they're the same thing. So you can create that your junior year if you really want to, or again, you could do that in the fall of your senior year. With that, it's pretty easy setup. They're gonna ask about, you know, your personal information, your biographical information. They're gonna ask about where have you played at, and then they're gonna ask you to submit your transcripts. It's usually transcripts and test scores is the main thing that they're looking for with the Eligibility Center. Any other questions? Okay. Another link I'll put in here is just a registration form from Seton Hall. If you have any questions about Seton Hall admissions, if I swayed you to submit an application, that would be great. Or if you just have more questions about athletics and you want to get in contact with me, I put a nice registration link that will give me your email address information, and I can follow up with you if you have any additional questions.
Rachel, can you hear me?
Yes.
Just wanted to say thank you so much. This has been fantastic. What a great presentation. Thank you so much. You're a rock star. I don't know if anybody has any more questions or comments. I know Rachel put her contact information up there. We are just about on time, so we could shut it down now if you're all ready.
Yeah, there's a few more questions in the chat I'll answer. So when we're talking in terms of scholarship, whether it's on your financial aid award letter or from the institution, generally institutions are talking about it on a year-by-year basis. So not the semester basis, it's the year-by-year basis. Okay, so for example, that merit scholarship I talked about at Seton Hall, if you have a 4.0, you're eligible to get up to a 22K in scholarship. That's 22K a year. Okay. Yes, to answer your question, the financial aid and that EFC number, the higher it is, the less likelihood and chances that you'll be able to receive additional scholarship from the government. However, it will still give your daughters those loan options with the subsidized and unsubsidized loans if they wanted to take out a loan in their name and they don't really have credit established yet. So that might be one reason why you want to complete and fill out the FAFSA, just so that your girls have the option to take out the loans in their name or not. Okay, I think that's the end of our questions.
Okay, then thank you again very much, Rachel. We really enjoyed this. You can see how much everyone liked it from all the engagements and terrific questions. So thank you everybody for participating as well. And like I said, we'll definitely have this up on our YouTube channel. So if anybody wants to get a second look or you know, share it with a friend, go right ahead. And I guess that's it. Thank you so much, Rachel.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me tonight. Thanks for everyone tuning in. I know it's late, so thank you, and everyone have a good night, okay?
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.